And here's our first lesson on red menus. So first of all, if I push the system button, let me get rid of the menus, push the system button, takes me into the system menu, and I'm going to start off on the project. It's highlighted there on the screen with a blinking arrow. I'm going to push down on my joystick to take me into the project menu. I'm going to come across by pushing the joystick from side to side to configure, and then push down to take me into configure. I'm now got to resolution and push down, highlight resolution. Here I can change the resolution of the red recording from 2K all the way up on these resolutions to 4.5K. There. I'm going to pick the most common one for the red, which is 4K 16:9. Push down, that will be selected. So I'm going to push up, back to configure, down again into resolution. Let's come to time base. I've pushed along. It's up to you. 24, 25, 30. Those are the common ones. I'm going to go with 24 for 24 frames a second. If I was shooting for TV in Europe, I might do it at 25, but modern digital television will work happily at 24 or 25 or any frame rate. So I'm going to stick to the feature film frame rate 24. When I'm happy with that, I'm going to come across to quality, push down, and at the moment it's red code 36. I can go to red code 28 to record more data at a slightly lower quality. I cannot pick red code 42 on a hard drive because it won't keep up. I can on the memory cards. Red code 36 is very, very high quality recording, and that's what we normally use when we're recording onto a hard drive on the red. The red at Greenwich has the memory cards and you can pick red code 42, but you'll get more data. The number refers to the number of megabytes per second that gets recorded. It's a very high recording rate, very high quality. Okay. If I click up, I've now configured this particular project. Let's have a look at some more things. Let's go to sound. I can record sound on the red, but it's very ill-advised because you need your sound recorders to be mobile. So I'm not going to look at that right now. If I come over to monitor and come down, I can then select my frame guide. I will need a frame guide, click down on that, and I've got my frame guide there set to 185. It's enabled. If I turn the frame guide off, it can disappear, but that's just confusing. So I can set this to different frame guides. You can see them appear there. That's 240. I want to leave it set to 185 because I like that one. If I disable it, the frame guide disappears. It doesn't get recorded, of course. This only appears on the monitor. You need it because you need to see where the frame is. We can also have safety enabled. These are little markers on the corner of the screen that tell you the safe area for television. If I disable them, like that, they disappear. If I enable them, they're back. We can also change the colour. At the moment they're set to be white. I can change them to other colours. I'll leave it set to white. It's your preference. And we can also do custom frame guides should we want to. I'm not going to go into that at the moment because I think it will just get too confusing on the screen to have too many markers set up. All kinds of things you can do there. I just find it confusing. So I'm going to come back to frame guide, set to 185. I'm happy. I'm going to come up. Over to setup. Let's have a look at some preferences. User profiles. You can save all the settings that you program on a little memory card you put into the red and take away with you, so where you go to your next red you can restore them. Not going to do that now, but it's useful. So, maintenance. We can do things like black shading. If you put the lens cap on, you can program the red to recalibrate itself for black balance. You do this about once a week if you're on a shoot, or if you go to extremes of temperature, like a foreign country where it's very, very hot or very, very cold. Don't need to do it now, but that's where you'd find that, all in maintenance. We can set the clock. We can do various things in setup which are not important right at this point. So let's go to another menu. Let's go to the sensor menu. So I push the sensor button on the back of the camera. Here, if I come over, sensitivity. This is where I adjust the sensitivity of the camera, and I can set it to many different things. As I bring it up, you'll see things starting to brighten. The default sensitivity for the MX sensor, which all our reds have, is 800 ISO. I'm going to click that and set it to 800 ISO. Color temperature. Okay, we can do an auto white balance if we hold a white card in front of the camera. I'm going to set it for tungsten, because in this studio we're lighting with tungsten light. If I go outside, I can set it to daylight. I could also come over here and do a manual white balance and set it to any figure that I want by adjusting it there on the menu. At the moment it's set to 3200, which is good. Please note that on the red, if you get this wrong, it doesn't matter, because it doesn't change in any way what gets recorded. You get the full 12 bits per colour, and you can readjust it as you need in the grade, which we'll do this afternoon. On the cheaper Sony cameras, this does matter because it affects what gets recorded, not on the red. It purely metadata, which gets written to the file, and if it's wrong, you can change it without any implications. It's one of the nice things about the red. So that's all done. Shutter. Okay. Gen lock is available to lock multiple reds together for 3D, which we don't do. Speed. Shutter speed. We can adjust the shutter speed. Normally, it would be a 48th of a second. A 48th of a second if you're shooting at 24 frames a second. So that's what I'll leave set. Mode. There are various modes: normal, synchro, and relative. I'm going to leave it set in synchro mode so that it's going to derive its shutter speed from the frame rate. This is all explained in the manual, by the way. So the manual is free to download, and it's a big manual. Vary speed. We can program the camera to ramp up and down. We can change the speed of photography during the shot to do slow motion. Not going to do it today. To go above 30 frames a second, we have to actually shoot in 3K or 2K. But it's available, so you can do all kinds of special effects photography. Video. Now I'm going to push the video button and go into the video menus. Let's have a look at video. We can change our colours, our tones. Again, this only changes metadata, doesn't affect the actual recording. Let's come to viewfinder though and go down in viewfinder. Very useful to have meters. Very useful to have meters enabled, because with meters we have the nice assists to tell us when we're overexposing. It's like the histograms. If I turn those off, these disappear and it's guesswork. So I always leave these enabled. Without it, you don't know what you're doing. You can configure your zebras. I'm not going to do it right now, but again, you can have zebra patterns come up on this display, just as you do with the Sony cameras, again to show you where you're overexposing. So, if we enable one zebra, configure, an IRE of 99 will tell us when we're overexposing. That's almost full exposure. So that would be a sensible lower RE, higher RE, that's sensible. We'll leave those set and we'll leave the one zebra enabled so we get a zebra pattern when we're overexposing on the viewfinder. Only on the viewfinder, of course, not on the recordings. Okay, let's come back to system, media, and down. Here we're going to actually format our magazine. That's one of the things we can do here. Change. Let's have a look at real number. Here's our real number. This is part of the naming system for the files that we get recorded on the red. And I'm going to set this back to number, I'm going to start at reel number 1 because this is the very first reel of our feature that we're shooting. Very important for the editor that this data be recorded and logged because he needs to know what file goes with which shot. So I'm going to start off reel number 1. Okay. Then come to format and come down. Now we're going to format our digital magazine. Format, this is dangerous. We're now reformatting that drive. Anything on that drive is being lost. So you only do this when you're absolutely confident that any footage has been safely copied off onto another computer. We'll do that this afternoon. We'll grab the stuff that we want to do and copy it onto another computer. So this is really the introduction to the red menus. Now let's just wait until this finishes so that we know that everything is safe. It takes a minute or so to format a magazine this big. If it's a memory card, it'll happen in a few seconds because they're much faster and much smaller. The advantage of this magazine, this hard drive, is it'll record about 3 hours of red shooting. So it's very, very high capacity. You won't run out in a day, basically, with a red drive. The danger with a red drive is you let the battery die on you. When the battery dies, it will destroy everything recorded. It won't damage the drive, but it will destroy your footage. Because it's like when you computer crash the software doesn't update the disk structure when the battery dies and it gets lost. It can't read the files. So don't ever let a red camera die with a dead battery because you'll damage whatever's recorded on that media. Very nasty. I'll show you in a minute how to check for that. Successfully reformatted. Okay, there we are. We're back. We've got our 3 histograms. We've got our viewfinder all nicely set. We've got 48th of a second exposure. We've got RAW being recorded, 800 ISO speed, 24 frames a second, all set for nice standard feature film photography. Okay, now we'll just show you the buttons that I was dealing with. Here we have the joystick, this little guy here. The joystick moves up and down, left and right, and you can actually grab it and turn it. To go up in the menu, you push it up. To go down into a menu, you push down. To go left and right along a menu, you push it that way or that way. When you've got one of the boxes with a parameter that you want to adjust, you twist it. Very easy. That's the system button for the system menu. That's the sensor button for the sensor menu. That's the video button for the video menu. That big red button there is to record. that big button underneath there is power, to power down the camera. Up here we have the buttons to play the previously recorded clip. On camera you can play back in the monitor by using these buttons, just like on a video tape recorder. You know, previous shot, next shot, play, stop, all the usual stuff. Here it says power 54. That means that battery is down to 54% of charge. Operator, when that gets to about 10%, you put your hand up and you say change battery. You then power down the camera, put a new battery on. Because when that goes too low, that camera's going to die and you'll lose the data. If you're recording, you'll lose the data. So you never want the camera to die mid-shot. Red batteries will tell you this number. Another make of battery will not, because they don't have the connections for it. So that's why we prefer red batteries, because that will count down. It's now gone down to 53. So we're gradually losing power. It also tells us things like the ISO, color temperature, how many frames a second, our time code, and our shutter speed. So that's 24 frames a second, 48th of a second exposure. That camera's properly set. When I push record, the red tally light will light here and on the front of the camera, so that you'll know, everyone knows that the camera is actually recording. And that really is the introduction to the red. Okay, on the side of the camera, I just want to point out button 2 here. If you push button 2, on the monitor you get the expanded focus. We zoom in to the central part of the display. You can set a really critical focus. To get out, push button 2 again. Don't push button 1 by mistake, because you'll do an automatic white balance and it will screw up your colour on your screen. Won't destroy the recording, but it'll do an automatic white balance. Button 2 is your expand focus. Very useful button. Apart from that, here is where you plug in the memory cards, if you're using memory cards, as opposed to a hard drive. You cannot use memory cards and a hard drive at the same time. One or the other, not both. And here is where you put your little tiny memory card, only cost a few pence, to record your camera settings if you're using this, you know, in a multi-camera shoot, or you want to take those settings away and not have to do it every time, which can take you half an hour. And that is the red camera. Any questions? Many more things to look at in the red, but that will do for now, because we want to get on with some photography. So, thank you.